It's time, Cougar Nation. Cougar Tracks. The best season analysis with BYU insider Mitch Harper on KSL NewsRadio and on video every day on the YouTube page for KSL Sports.
Welcome into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube and KSL NewsRadio. I am your BYU insider, Mitch Harper. Happy to have you on board of the show wherever and however you're watching or listening to the show. BYU improves to 4-0 this season after defeating Colorado 24-21. The Cougs are now number 23 in the AP Top 25 poll. And usually on Mondays, we just unpack the game, but we do have to start off with some off-the-field statements being issued surrounding Saturday's game.
The top story of the day. The biggest story in the world of BYU sports right here on Cougar Tracks.
The University of Colorado Boulder condemned the chants that took place on Saturday during the game between Colorado and BYU. For context, these chants were centered around BYU's faith, the fan base's faith, bleep the Mormons. That happened during the game. Early on in the game, it was very early. There were bleep BYU chants, and then later in the game, it was bleep the Mormons. The University of Colorado Boulder, their chancellor, Justin Schwartz, and athletic director Rick George issued a statement. The University of Colorado Boulder strongly condemns the use of explicitives and religious slurs by individuals in the stands during the recent football game against BYU. Such behavior is deeply disappointing and does not reflect the values of respect, inclusion, and integrity we expect of our campus community. They continue, we thank the majority of fans who continue to support our teams with enthusiasm and respect. Together, we can ensure that CU Boulder events remain a source of pride and unity for our community and that visitors to our campus have a positive experience. They also noted the fan code of conduct and things like that. You can see the full statement right there. But you can add it as another apology issued to BYU, which has been kind of a common occurrence in recent years. Seems like the last 4 or 5 years, this has happened. I was partially joking with some local media members in Boulder on Saturday that I had a draft teed up on my website on kslsports.com for this exact situation, an apology. And I say that because anytime in recent visits, BYU has gone to a Western program, their house, former Pac-12 school, it's typically ended in apologies. 2021 USC game, the final regular season game of that season, the night before USC announced Lincoln Riley as its head coach, there were chants in the stands at the Coliseum, the very few USC fans that were there, chanting bleep the Mormons. USC issued an apology. 2022 Oregon, the chants were very loud. I didn't hear them in the press box. It was open air, but there were videos that were circulating of that student section that was across the way in Autzen. They issued an apology. 2022 Stanford, there wasn't a bleep the Mormons chant, but there was a halftime band performance with 2 women getting married, kind of taking jabs at BYU's faith and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. 2024, the Utah game, there was a water bottle thrown at a cheerleader. 2024, Arizona State, there was a field storming, hostile crowd. There were some fans getting tasered, getting up in the faces of BYU players. I was down on the field for that. And now 2025 Colorado. Oh, and then on basketball, there was the Arizona game where there was the chants of bleep the Mormons, and then Providence College as well out on the East Coast. So this has been kind of a common deal for, you just kind of almost expect it at this point, which is unfortunate because everyone deserves to be treated with respect. And on the heels of a weekend too, where it feels even more unfortunate that these chants happen on a weekend where President Nilsson, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints prophet, President Russell M. Nilsson, he passed away that evening on Saturday night. And then Sunday morning, the tragic events in Michigan. These sort of things just can't happen. I mean, and I said it on Saturday night, early Sunday morning, the bleep BYU chants, whatever. But when you're taking attacks at religions, at people's faith, that should be just off limits. Don't mock people's faith. Just everyone deserves respect. BYU doesn't go out of its way to say, please give us a public apology. They usually just move on, take the high road, and just get on with their lives. And I don't think, any Cougar fan really is. I know there's some pockets on social media that are saying, this needs to end. Please be done with this. Look, it's going to probably happen. There's going to be places it happens. It doesn't excuse it. But it's just unfortunate that this is becoming a common trend, especially out west. And it just makes me wonder, why does this always happen in these Western schools that really have no history recently with BYU? Just it happens. Again, BYU hasn't been a Boulder in 44 years. Yet those students were hyped up and then instantly pulled that card when adversity was hitting their team. Maybe it's just because there's so many Cougar fans and they're making their voices heard. They're chanting BYU, and that gets Colorado fans or whatever fan base fired up to counter, and then they take a low blow dig with the religious side of things. It doesn't make sense to me, and I don't understand why religion gets brought up as a taunt for people. But it was good to see Colorado issue that statement condemning the chants, because it's just not needed. Everyone deserves respect, and why point and make chants about people's faith, their abilities, their disabilities, their looks? It just no need for that. Make it about the teams. Make it about the game. Make it what's taking place on the field rather than these personal attacks on faith, attacks on religion. It's just not needed. And then on the heels of everything that transpired this weekend, it just really wasn't a good look for the University of Colorado. But hopefully it's an educational opportunity for those students where they think twice about chanting things about people's religions going forward, and maybe it becomes something that they learn from and it doesn't become a thing again. We'll see. But it's happened quite a bit, to the point where I'm writing these stories very often on KSLSports.com about this school issued an apology to BYU. It's happening a lot. I mean, all those happened since 2021, November 21, less than 4 years ago, all those instances. Utah's thing was a water bottle, isolated deal. There wasn't any sort of chance about the faith, but it's just some hostile crowds that BYU goes into. BYU gets people fired up, I guess, when they roll into town. And the Cougars, of course, got the victory over Colorado, 24-21. It was a big win for BYU. We'll unpack more of that game here on Cougar Tracks. Let's take a break. More Cougar Tracks next here on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports YouTube page. BYU takes down Colorado 24-21. The Cougs are now 4-0 on the season, 1-0 in Big 12 play, riding high after a big victory over the Buffs. And it was a good win for the Cougars, being down 14-0 and storming back and finding a way to score in every quarter. Very impressive by BYU to just put together a gritty win. And I look at this game coming out of it and saying, Colorado's not going to be great. I know Coach Prime had his post-game speech to Colorado that was on Well Off Media, his son's YouTube channel. It's basically saying they're a lot better than this, and they got a lot more potential. I think Colorado does. Just for whatever reason, they can't get it to come together. I think they lack a little bit of leadership from those players, and I think they're going to be struggling to make a bowl game this season. I do. I think BYU took their best shot. They swung and threw everything they had at BYU in that first quarter, and it gave them great early success, but BYU responded. And I thought Isaiah Glasker was phenomenal for BYU. He had the interception. He was excellent. Get Isaiah Glasker every week against Colorado, and he's just going to put up memorable performances. But that's Glasker, though, in general. Glasker's one of the best linebackers in the Big 12. I'd stack him up against really anyone in the country. Isaiah Glasker is a special football player, and I thought Bear Bachmeier had a special game as well. Bear, of course, 19 of 27, 179 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was pretty good. Now, he had some near interceptions. There were those 2 throws to Chase Roberts where I said, how on earth did one Chase catch those balls? But they weren't intercepted. It was kind of remarkable. Parker Kingston almost had an interception too that was thrown into double coverage on a special. intended for LJ Martin. But BYU, by all accounts, had a pretty good game. 387 total yards to Colorado's 291. BYU goes off for 208 rushing yards on a night where they don't have Sione Moa, the backup running back. LJ Martin, the star. They zeroed in all their resources, Colorado did, on LJ Martin. Smart move. But then that opened up for Bear Bachmeier, who took off and ran for 15 carries, 98 yards, and averages 6.5 a pop. And his longest one was on that 3rd and 17, where he had a 16-yard gain, putting BYU in a 4th and manageable. This was Kalani Sitake, his opening remarks after the win over the Buffs.
Good game, and happy we got the victory. But more than anything, just really what a great environment, college football in the Big 12. Here in Boulder, Colorado fans showed up, and I'm glad that we had some fans here too, but what a really cool environment. And it's hard to go on the road and to win games, especially when you start as slow as we did. And I say you start slow, but you have to give credit to Colorado for making the plays. I'm just proud of the way our guys responded afterwards, the grit that they had, and just we knew that we had more game to play. And so just the fact that they just stuck with it and kept playing hard, it's a huge move for our players and our program, and a great step for this team.
Kalani's always going to take the high road and give praise to any fan base. He always does that. He gave praise to the Colorado fan base, even though they were chanting some derogatory chants, obviously, as we already addressed. This was Coach Prime after the game, and he was very complimentary of BYU, particularly Bear Bachmeier.
Utmost respect for the coaching staff over there, especially the head coach and his wonderful father that I've had the pleasure to meet twice now. Disciplined team, fundamentally sound team, played their butts off. Young quarterback is phenomenal. Proud of him. He did what he had to do to win the game. He made the plays that he was supposed to make to win the game. Tough fought game. I can't say I'm highly upset. I'm upset with a few things, but sometimes when it seems like you had more talent, but you didn't quite win the game, it makes it feel somewhat awkward. We had opportunities, tremendous amount of opportunities, but nevertheless, we didn't cash in on it. And sometimes it felt like the moment was just too big for some of our athletes. And they got to do something about that. At halftime, we challenge certain positions to go out there and up their game, challenge their opponents. We didn't get that. We got the same thing that we had in the first half. We got to do better as a staff, as a team, and I got to do better.
BYU is 4-0 for the second consecutive year. It's the 12th 4-0 start in program history. Second time in the Kalani Sitake era, BYU has back-to-back seasons starting 4-0. 2020 and 2021, they did that. And then 2024 and 2025. Coach Prime, I think, complimentary. It's pretty cool. He gave props to Coach Kalani's father, Pops, Tom Sitake, and Kalani himself, and, of course, Bear Bachmeier. A lot of respect between Coach Sitake and Coach Prime. So very respectful and cordial there. But clearly, Colorado wanted this game. You know, coming into that matchup, you see it on the TV broadcast. Coach Prime was telling Quint Kucinich, we're going to be ready, offense, defense, special teams, we coming. They wanted this game badly. And as he noted, they weren't ready for the big stage. They weren't. Draylon Miller, their running back, wide receiver, running back, they had him at Wildcat, and that worked early on quite a bit for the Buffs. They had a lot of success with that, but BYU adjusted. And I thought some players on BYU's side of things that really impressed me in this game were Bodie Schoonover. Bodie, kind of stepped up late, had that pass deflection. I think that's something he can build on. Bodie has been someone that we've heard his name for years. He's finally taking big steps forward in his development. I still think this BYU defensive end group can get better. Logan Latui, I thought, was solid. They were kind of staying away from his side of the field. Colorado was. But Bodie Schoonover did a nice job, and I think he responded late in the game. I thought early on, he and pretty much the entire defensive line struggled. They all were flustered out of the gates. But Bodie turned it around. I thought Tavion Beasley stepping in for Tommy Parasis had some moments. And if Parasis is in fact banged up this week against West Virginia, short week, Beasley, I think, will do a nice job at nickel. I kind of like cornerbacks being the nickel personally. I think that's just what I would prefer to see, honestly, at that position. I think Parasis has done okay. I think he's done fine. But I just feel like that position is served better with a cornerback at that spot, and then have Parasis at one of his traditional safety positions. He could play either one of those spots. I thought Tanner Wall, speaking of the safety position, he continues to play at such a high level, I think, for BYU. He had 3 tackles on the night, but he's just so assignment sound. He is a really good football player on the back end of the defense, and Faletau Satuala had some moments, too, in his limited snaps. He only had about 27 snaps played in this game, yet he ends up with 5 tackles, 1 sack, his first career sack, and a tackle for loss. Faletau continues to stack up games where he's making plays. And BYU's offense, too. I thought that they did a better job, the offensive line, at minimizing the penalties. BYU as a team only ended up with 6 penalties for 34 yards. Compared to the Colorado, they had 6 penalties for 67 yards, some of which were key in helping BYU get into scoring position. Think about that drive in the second quarter where it ends up with a touchdown catch to Chase Roberts. It was a little bit aided by some holding and some pass interference penalties on that Colorado secondary where they couldn't really keep up or ran into BYU players. Guys like Chase Roberts were running some excellent routes to keep the Buffs on their heels and resorting to those penalties. So I think it was a really solid game for BYU. And as Kalani Sitake noted in that clip you heard earlier, it was a big moment for the program to just, again, escape a win. I think that sometimes, I think Cougar fans are getting better at this, where it's no longer about style points. Just win the game. So what if the AP pollsters don't rank you? Who cares? At this point, it is what it is. They're never going to give you the benefit of the doubt unless you beat maybe a top 10 team. But even then, they never rank Big 12 teams in the top 10. Texas Tech capped at number 11. They can never get into the top 10. Anyway, that's a whole different side story. But who cares about the style points at this point? Sure, I think there's areas where you got to get better and you wonder, what's the ceiling of this team, truly? Because, again, I don't look at Colorado and say that's probably more than a 6-win team at best this season. Colorado fans, I think, want to fire Pat Shurmur, the offensive coordinator, because once he got figured out, he was figured out, and they had no second and third gear to attack BYU. But still, just win the games. Survive in advance. Win. Get those dubs, and then at season's end, you're in a position to have everything in front of you. By being in the Big 12 Conference and being in this league, everything is in front of you that you want to achieve as a team. Let's take our final timeout. We'll get to the stock exchange next. What's trending up and trending down for BYU football? It's Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube page. Welcome back into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube page and KSL NewsRadio. Every single Monday here on the show, we fire up the Cougar Stock Exchange.
The Cougar Stock Exchange. What's trending up and what's trending down? It's the Cougar Stock Exchange.
That's right, Mondays, we always give you the latest on what's trending up and trending down for the Cougs in the Cougar Stock Exchange. And on the heels of a 24-21 win over Colorado, I think there's a lot to like about this BYU team. In particular, Bear Bachmeier. Easy to say, right? But he continues to trend up. The true freshman quarterback has yet to throw an interception this season. Yes, there were some close calls, but what a gamer. What a gutty performance from Bear Bachmeier to lead his squad into a hostile environment where the games start to count in league play. Bear Bachmeier got it done for the Cougs, and he led them in rushing yards. This was Chase Roberts after the game. on Bear Bachmeier.
When you run the ball like that, when you throw the ball like that, like you just get confidence in a guy. You make plays, and we're 4-0, and we played some great teams, and we've had to battle adversity. And to see someone that is so young and so poised in the huddle and ready to get us going, like that's, you have to trust in a guy like that. And when a guy goes out and balls and wins games for us, that's who we rally behind, and he's been awesome for us.
He really has been awesome for BYU. He's lived up to what Aaron Roderick and Kalani Sitake saw in him when they named him the starting quarterback. When Bear Bachmeier got this job, you just thought, is he going to be able to win over the locker room? Is he going to be able to really lead this team that was so close to a Big 12 title last year? Can he win those guys over and give them the confidence that they can go get the job done? I think he's won over this program. I think he's won over this locker room. Maybe it wasn't Portland State, but I think games like Colorado, if there was anyone that had any sort of doubt in Bear Bachmeier still in that locker room, which was very minimal going into Boulder, but if there were a few guys, I think he silenced that. I think he did an excellent job in that game. I mean, the way that he was running, just pinballing off guys and finding a way to get those tough yards. Impressive stuff. And he's got the body to withstand some of those hits. That's the nice thing about Bear Bachmeier and his ability to get it done and move those chains. This was Kalani Sitake on his quarterback, Bear Bachmeier, after the win over the Buffs.
I thought he did a great job, and just, it didn't ever look like, from my perspective, didn't ever look like he was frazzled or that he was shell-shocked at all. So that's a huge, that's how he comes to it. I mean, he came like that. So credit his family and the way he was raised. I mean, the guys, he was a cool customer, and I love the way he was leading out there. And so we just have to be better so that we don't have to put ourselves in a hole like that. But I think we'll work on that. Right now, we're going to celebrate the win and just the resilience and the way these guys are able to grind it out. I'm really proud of them doing that. And you have to give a lot of credit to Colorado. I thought they gave us some different looks that we haven't seen, and they utilized a lot of their skill and talent. You can tell the talent that's on their team at all different levels, and so they're not easy to play and not easy to match up against. And I thought they did a great job in all three phases. I'm just glad that we were able to make a few more plays than they did and came out with a victory, a tight victory.
Coach Sitake touched on it right there about starting off stronger. That's what's trending down still, is those fast starts. BYU is kind of struggling. Bear Bachmeier, even he being trending up, he can get better on those first quarters because this team starts slow. And hopefully for the Cougars, they kind of nip this going forward because it's going to backfire eventually. There's going to be some better teams on the schedule. Utah, Iowa State, Texas Tech, TCU, even Cincinnati, who got a big win over the weekend over Kansas. There are good teams on the schedule ahead. You've got to be able to get off to fast starts. So that's something that's trending down. I think another area that's trending up, BYU's ability to make in-game adjustments. Cougar fans know this all too well. There were games in the past, in various eras, whether Lavelle era, Crowin, Bronco, Kalani, early years, where you see some tendencies that maybe catch you off guard, flat-footed. Can you make the in-game adjustments and adjust on the fly and still be able to come out on top and get the win? This team looked like they had deer in the headlights looks early on, down 14-0 before they could even blink. Yet they responded, and defensively, they made the necessary adjustments to completely shut down the Buffs. After that 14-0 start, Colorado only ends up with 21 points, 7 additional points. They only had 53 plays in that game. And I just think that ability to be able to make the in-game adjustments, we've talked about it a lot on the show, but the coaching retention of the staff, it's been huge. And it paid off on Saturday to where this staff was all in alignment of what they needed to do to make those necessary adjustments. They're all on the same page. The communication between the coaches, they're all on the same page, and they're able to translate that communication to the players, and the players are able to execute. I think that was really impressive because, again, There were years in the past, even in the Kalani era, the early years, where teams are just attacking BYU over and over. You're thinking, where are the adjustments? At what point do you say enough's enough? This team said, okay, you got your 14, enough's enough. You're not getting any more. And they only got 7 points for the Buffs, and BYU really put that game in their style of play, their pace of play. They controlled that game, and they didn't allow Colorado to really take any shots downfield. Colorado wasn't even looking. That blew me away because I look at Colorado since Coach Prime took over. They're a team that wants to take deep shots down the field. You wonder if they make any sort of change at quarterback again. Did Caden Salter do enough for the Buffs going forward to cement himself as the guy, or was it truly just a play-calling issue with Pat Shurmur? We'll see. But BYU's coaching staff and their ability to make in-game adjustments, very impressive. Jay Hill, this guy's one of the best in the business. He is elite, and this coaching staff is really flying high and operating at such a high level right now. They are a winning program. BYU is 15-2 since last year. That doesn't get discussed enough. 15-2 since last year. They know how to win football games, and they know how to win them in a variety of ways. And when you have all these points of reference that you can point to and concepts and ways to win games, I think it just makes you feel really confident. And now you're doing it on the offensive side with a true freshman quarterback. And then on the defensive side, you're still bringing in some guys that are stepping up. Shmev, Evan Johnson, absolute dude. He is becoming the Jacob Robinson of the secondary. His closing speed was outstanding on some of those tackles. BYU's in a really good place right now. Now they focused and shift their attention to the West Virginia Mountaineers Friday night game. So this can be a little bit of a crazy, busy week for the Cougars, shortened week. They'll be back in action on Friday night against the Mountaineers, 8:30 p.m. kickoff. Coming up in another week or so, or another week, Arizona, October 11th. That game will kick off at 6 p.m. in Tucson on ESPN2. So the season is quickly rolling along. We're into game number 5 coming up this week, and then it'll be the midway point, and then before we know it, it's BYU versus Utah. That's going to do it for this edition of Cougar Tracks. I hope all of you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to the show. Leave a 5-star rating and a review. It helps out the show a ton. I will talk to you tomorrow here on Cougar Tracks, and it's powered by KSL Sports.